Poor girl protects an old man from thieves, not knowing he owns the biggest company. The winter air smells of wet cardboard and roasted peanuts. A slow train of clouds drifts over the market roof, muting the sunlight into pale gold. Tarpaulin sheets flap lazily above fruit stalls. Somewhere a radio plays at low volume, crackling like old memories. The camera opens inside this moment. No explanation, no past, just a fragile now already unfolding. A small girl stands beside an aging man on a wooden bench. Her sweater is thin, sleeves slightly longer than her arms, hiding her fingers. The man's coat is humble, faded at the elbows. A briefcase rests near his feet, ordinary, unguarded. People pass around them, blurred with routine, unaware. Then a hand appears, quick, practiced, reaching for the briefcase. Another follows. The girl shifts instantly, eyes sharp with instinct. She leans toward the old man and whispers, almost to herself, almost to him, "Uncle, should I hold it for you?" Before he can answer, the world tilts. Thieves close in. Market noise fades. Danger becomes the only language. She doesn't know his name. She doesn't know his worth. She only knows this: someone tired deserves to sit without losing what little he carries. If this moment made your heart pause, tell me, where are you watching from? If you truly enjoy stories like this, like and subscribe, share it with a friend, and let kindness travel further than fear.
The market wakes before the city does. Not all at once, but in fragments. A shutter groans upward. A crate scrapes concrete. A bicycle bell rings twice, not to warn, only to announce existence in the fog. The morning is cold enough to turn breath visible, warm enough to carry faint scents: earthy potatoes, bruised apples, tea boiling somewhere unseen. Everything looks softened, edges dissolved, like a world still deciding whether to fully appear. The girl steps into this half-lit place quietly. Her shoes absorb the damp instead of resisting it. Thin canvas, soles tired from walking too often. Last night's rain still lives inside them, a cold memory squishing under each careful footstep. Does a child feel cold differently than adults do? Or does cold simply feel heavier when you're small and alone? Her sweater is knitted but loose, a shade of gray that once might have been lavender, threads slightly frayed at the wrist. Not a deliberate style, just time passing faster on some clothes than others. She doesn't rush. Poor children learn pacing early. Not slow because they want to, but slow because energy is rationed like bread. A vendor shakes open a plastic sheet over his stall. The snap echoes. The girl flinches only inside her eyes, not her body. Have you ever reacted to sound without moving? The kind of reaction that no one notices, but you feel like a pebble dropped in still water? That is how she lives in the world, present, but gently hidden. She walks between fruit stalls that look like small kingdoms of color floating inside mist. Red pomegranates, green chilies, and oranges stacked like tiny suns refusing to warm anything. Vendors sit bundled, heads dipped, hands cupped around paper teacups. No conversations, only murmurs. The market speaks in unfinished sentences. Is uncertainty louder when it whispers? Sometimes the quietest moments hold the most noise inside them. At the far side, the bench sits like a neutral ground, wood darkened by rain, legs rusted from age. The old man occupies one end, shoulders slightly curved inward, as if protecting something invisible. A cane rests between his knees, not decorative, necessary. His coat is simple, almost shapeless, brown but tired, like soil after harvest. Hands veined with time, knuckles softly swollen from winters collected one after another. His eyes are lowered but not closed, awake but not demanding anything from the world. The girl chooses the other end of the bench without ceremony. No greeting, no permission. Some people sit like they are claiming space. She sits as if she is borrowing it temporarily from the air. Strangers often sit beside each other, but how often do they sit like reflections of each other? One at the beginning of life, one at the far end. Both silent, both carrying a loneliness that speaks a language softer than words. A rickshaw sputters by, engine coughing like a smoker clearing his throat. The girl doesn't turn her head, but her gaze follows the sound sideways. The man remains still, coat absorbing the vibration like old trees absorb wind without swaying. Why do some people look breakable even when sitting, and why do others look immovable even when they are tired? She notices him fully now, curiosity blooming quietly in her chest. The market feels off today. Not dangerous in a cinematic sense, dangerous in a real sense, the kind you don't see clearly but feel in the rhythm of the place. A man crosses the aisle, pauses, then crosses again minutes later. A woman with an empty basket stands longer than needed near a closed stall, eyes flicking sideways. Footsteps repeat, not wandering, measuring. Conversations occur behind stalls, low and segmented. Words don't matter, tone does. Have you ever heard a conversation where you understood nothing but still felt everything? The girl becomes alert in layers. First survival instinct, then awareness, then something sharper, concern. Why does concern feel different from fear? Fear is self-centered, loud inside your body. Concern is outward, quieter, but deeper. She doesn't know the old man. She doesn't know if he deserves to be protected. But something in his stillness looks like surrender to exhaustion, not peace. And surrender is not the same as calm, is it? She adjusts her posture slightly, one foot forward, shoulders squaring, but gently so no one notices the intention. She positions herself between the flow of people and him, not dramatically, just naturally. If someone were to draw a map of guardianship, would it look like armor or like presence? Hers is presence, small but intentional. A tea seller approaches, kettle steaming, glasses rattling in his tray. He offers nothing, assumes nothing, and simply walks past. The girl watches him pour tea for another vendor. The old man doesn't ask for any. Why do tired people sometimes stop asking for warmth even when it's available? Maybe warmth is not always about temperature. The girl pulls out a small piece of bread from her pocket, wrapped in yesterday's newspaper. She takes a bite. The sound is almost silent. The paper crinkles softly. The old man hears it, not with interest, but recognition. His head tilts a fraction, not toward the bread, toward the small sound of someone else existing quietly beside him. Does loneliness make you sensitive to tiny human noises? She doesn't offer him any bread, not because she is selfish, but because their bond has not earned dialogue yet. Bonds begin long before words do. Words are a privilege later. Silence is the contract at the start. A group of men stands near a stall at a distance, jackets zipped high, caps pulled low. They don't look threatening like movie villains. They look threatening like real thieves, ordinary, unremarkable, invisible to the careless eye. Their attention is not scattered. It sharpens occasionally toward the bench, toward the briefcase near his feet. Plain leather, slightly worn, ordinary to anyone who knows its contents. The girl notices the attention before the man does. Children notice danger earlier. Adults name it later. The men shift their stance, casual but coordinated. The market's soft murmurs continue, but tension threads between ordinary sounds like a thin wire pulled slowly taut. The girl stands up, walks a few steps toward a stall, buys nothing, then returns. She sits again, but closer this time, not leaning into him, but leaning into readiness. The old man finally lifts his eyes slightly, not alarmed, not grateful, just noticing that a small child returned to the same space again. Why does returning build more trust than arriving ever can? A crow hops onto a fruit crate, tilts its head, watches the humans watching each other. Vendors don't care. Routine has dulled their curiosity. But the audience still cares, don't they? You're watching closely now, too. Why are the men watching the briefcase? Why is the child watching the men? Why is the old man watching nothing at all, yet being watched by everyone who wants something from him? The girl brushes her palm against the wooden bench, feeling the cold grain. The man's hand shifts on his cane. Their elbows are slightly closer now, warmth not shared, but no longer separated. Does proximity heal loneliness or reveal it more? A whistle blows far off, market security signaling opening time. Not because of danger, only the schedule. But the sound slices the tension anyway. The repeating footsteps pause for a beat. The men look away. The girl doesn't relax. Concern has become responsibility now. Responsibility is quieter than fear, but it carries weight longer, doesn't it? She doesn't know his story. He doesn't know hers. But something invisible has formed between them already. Fragile as fog, real as cold, unspoken as survival, soft as chosen kinship beginning before it earns its name. Tension forms like a shadow, slow but arriving. The market has fully awakened now, but uncertainty still sleeps beside them. Eyes open, hands on a cane, briefcase unclaimed, child sitting closer than loneliness normally allows. Does the story feel ordinary? Or does it feel like the moment before ordinary breaks into something else?
The sun rises higher, but it does it slowly here, like someone lifting a curtain gently, not snapping it open. The fog doesn't disappear dramatically. It just thins, strand by strand, until you can finally see the tops of the date palm trees behind the market, the tangled wires above, and the color of the fruit that had been floating like paint swirls an hour ago. Light spreads, pale and warm, yet the air remains cold, heavy with morning moisture that refuses to fully dry. The girl stays near the old man longer than she ever intended. It wasn't a decision she announced in her mind. It was a decision her body made for her, choosing stillness over wandering, choosing shared space over aimless survival. Have you ever stayed beside someone without knowing why you stayed? Maybe the heart recognizes echoes before the brain names them. His scarf slips from his shoulder, not because of wind, but because his posture is tired, and winter has become a long, quiet opponent he no longer fights. The cloth droops toward the ground. The girl reaches, not hurried, not hesitant, just instinctive. She picks it up by the corner, shakes the dust off lightly, and drapes it back over his shoulder, adjusting it near the collar so it sits properly this time. No eye contact, no permission, only the soft certainty of action. Why does kindness sometimes look so small from the outside, but feel so large when you witness it? The old man doesn't say thank you. He simply blinks once, slowly, like a door closing softly instead of locking. Gratitude here isn't spoken. It hangs between breaths, warm as shared air. He shifts a few inches to the left, not to acknowledge the gesture, but to make room for her when she returns. A silent hospitality, small but real. Have you ever been welcomed without being spoken to? Without being looked at directly? Welcomed just by someone moving their coat slightly so you fit into the world more easily. She walks toward a bread stall. The bread is cheap, almost flat, edges uneven, wrapped in thin butter paper that sticks to warmth. The vendor doesn't look at her face, only her coins. She hands exact change. No bargaining, no conversation. Her voice is a whisper she doesn't spend unless necessary. She turns back toward the bench, bread in hand. He watches her return, not with curiosity, but with calm observation. Some people stare, some glance, some ignore. He simply registers. Why does being registered quietly feel safer than being questioned loudly? She sits again, but this time not at the far edge, a little closer, their coats nearly brushing. The cold air is the same for everyone, but their bench becomes something different now. An island formed by two quiet people sharing temperature, silence, and a subtle human alignment. The market continues its chaos around them. Vendors argue over price like generals negotiating territory. Rickshaws screech into the lanes, engines coughing impatience. A radio crackles cricket commentary for no audience at all. Shoppers shout vegetable rates, hands slicing air like blades. But none of that touches the bench. The bench is not louder than the world. It is simply calmer than it. The girl eats her bread slowly. The old man breathes slowly. The world rushes loudly. Bonding is contrast too, isn't it? Does closeness always require dialogue, or does it sometimes require quiet resistance to noise? She speaks occasionally, not to him, not to the market, just to the air near her own shoulder, thoughts leaking softly into the world without demanding response. It's colder today, she murmurs. People walk too fast. Maybe benches get lonely too. Her sentences don't ask for answers, but they reveal her inner rhythm. The old man listens without intruding, not reacting, not advising, not interrupting, just absorbing. Why do some listeners heal without replying? He stands at one point, knees stiff, movement slow like an old clock trying to remember time. The girl pauses her chewing. She watches his body struggle upward, hand tightening on the cane, coat folding awkwardly around his shoulders. She waits, no rushing to help, no grabbing his arm, just waiting. Because rushing a tired person is another kind of theft, isn't it? Theft of dignity, theft of pace. Have you ever waited for someone's slowness the way others wait for someone's speed? He looks down at her shoes when she bends to tie them later. One lace frayed, the other stubborn, fingers half hidden inside sleeves again. She pulls the knot gently. The old man remains standing until she finishes, not moving away, not sitting back down, not showing impatience, waiting like silent respect paid in stillness. Why does waiting build more trust than saving sometimes does? Their bond is not built in events, it is built in micro-moments, the ones algorithms don't see, but humans do. The way she leaves crumbs on the bench and he doesn't brush them away immediately. The way he breathes slightly less heavy when she sits beside him again after standing. The way she checks market corners now with concern, not curiosity. The way he no longer shifts his coat inward when strangers walk past, because a child's presence has become a buffer, thin but meaningful. The silence becomes shared instead of endured separately. Do we always choose family, or do we sometimes just recognize it forming? A subtle emotional risk blooms quietly in the story now. Caring is becoming something she can lose, and loss is sharper when you've owned nothing, isn't it? Does loneliness make kindness feel dangerous too? Because dangerous things can disappear. At the market edge, men begin appearing again. Not one, not two. A slow constellation of ordinary faces, jackets zipped high, conversations low, footsteps returning too often. Their presence presses inward, like tide testing shore quietly before it commits to wave. The girl notices the shift in pressure. Her bread pauses mid-bite. Her chewing pauses. Her body doesn't panic. Her eyes do the shouting for her, sharp, small, alarmed. Why does danger always return when warmth finally arrives? Or is that only how stories feel when you're watching closely? The old man doesn't turn toward the market edge yet. Some people see danger only when it touches them. Some see it when it approaches others. The girl is the second kind. She rises, not fast, not heroic,
just a child stepping into responsibility quietly. Her gaze narrows on the market corners again, concern tightening into instinctive guardianship. The world still looks ordinary to everyone else, but to you, the witness, doesn't ordinary sometimes feel like the disguise danger prefers? The chapter ends on her alert eyes, not on explanation, because explanations close tension, observation sustains it, and retention belongs to tension that breathes, not tension that screams. The sun now rests high in the sky, sharp enough to highlight edges that morning mist had hidden. Shadows are shorter, sharper, but they don't soften the unease that has begun threading the market. Vendors shout over the rickshaws, chopping vegetables with crisp knife strikes, the smell of fried snacks rising from a stall tucked into a corner. Ordinary sounds, ordinary smells, ordinary people moving through ordinary chaos. But tension grows invisible between them, like static on the skin. The men are no longer distant shapes at the market edge. They move with purpose now. Casual buyers, yes, but each step measured, each glance flicking sideways, counting, planning, eyes sharp. The way ordinary people sometimes watch a clock, predictable, repetitive, but here it's for opportunity. The girl notices first, small gestures, hands brushing past crates, lingering near the bench without reason, fingers tracing over leather in stalls, eyes flicking toward the old man, toward the bag that sits casually at his feet. She stiffens slightly. Her small hand curls near her chest, brushing the fabric of her sweater. Heart begins a slow drum. Not panic, not terror, awareness, alertness. Every instinct in her body hums a quiet warning. Something is about to happen. She looks at the old man. He is still sitting, eyes lowered, unaware. Doesn't the world sometimes blind people with routine, with habits, until danger touches them? Why him? Why now? Why when someone finally stayed beside him, filling the silence with quiet presence? Her movements are deliberate but seem ordinary. She rises slowly, almost like stretching after sleep. The old man notices nothing. To him, perhaps, it's just a child standing again. But she positions herself subtly, closer to his side, hand hovering near the sleeve of his coat, not grabbing yet, not demanding movement, just ready, ready to shield, ready to intercept. Every small motion counts here. A millimeter can protect a life. A heartbeat can warn the innocent. The men close in. Their approach is quiet, too quiet to alarm anyone outside this scene. Hands hover near the old man's briefcase now, brushing over the edges. Leather scuffs the floor ever so slightly. Did anyone see? Perhaps, perhaps not. But the girl sees. She reacts. Instinct unfiltered by thought. One motion. She pushes the bag toward herself, holding it with both small hands. The weight is heavier than expected. The men falter for a second, not long enough to reconsider, just long enough to notice resistance. She whispers, or perhaps shouts, just enough for one person to hear. "Move, now!" The old man freezes, eyes widen, cane clutches tighter. He watches the child's small frame bracing for collision with the world, and suddenly comprehension. Someone smaller than him, smaller than he ever imagined, is standing between him and threat. He doesn't yell, he doesn't move too quickly, he simply realizes. Hands strike again, faster, surer, but proximity is now her ally. The struggle is brief, compressed into inches, breaths, thumps of quickened pulse. There is no grand chase, there are no cinematic leaps, just the tense, unembellished struggle of human bodies close enough to feel the warmth of fear and courage at once. A knock of the bench, a shifting of the briefcase, a glance sideways that measures the risk. The girl doesn't speak again. Her body speaks for her, small, firm, unwavering, a child standing against intention far larger than herself.
Courage in miniature. She doesn't win with skill. She wins with presence, with attention, with the simple truth that some lives are worth immediate guarding, even at the risk of one's own. The old man rises slowly, startled. His cane clicks against the concrete. The market noise re-enters, but muffled, like a tide returning after a storm. He finally looks at the girl, not with surprise at her bravery, not with gratitude that requires words, just with an acknowledgement. Someone chose to protect me without being asked. The men retreat, abrupt and unceremonious, spurred not by combat or skill, but by market security whistles slicing through the ordinary chaos. They scatter into alleys, disappearing into the ordinary world they tried to exploit. They leave behind the briefcase, untouched. The old man steadies it, hands brushing over its leather. His fingers linger, not inspecting, not checking for loss, just registering survival. The girl collapses slightly into the bench, trembling, small frame shaking from adrenaline. Fear has caught up with bravery. She doesn't cry, she doesn't speak. Her lips quiver, her hands clutch at the bag, and she lets the quiet tremble wash over her. The market returns gradually to its rhythm, unaware of what just happened. Would anyone notice? Perhaps, perhaps not. But here, in this bench space, the world has shifted. The old man studies her briefly. His eyes are soft, reflective, not interrogative. His presence is steady, grounding. A hand hovers near the bag, not to pull it away, not to cast eyes, just steadying, just registering that the child is overwhelmed but unbroken. And in that stillness, the audience realizes the intimacy forming, fear shared, courage witnessed, vulnerability protected. The girl finally straightens, wiping her sleeve against her cheek. She glances around the market, noticing the ordinary faces again. No one knows what transpired in the space of heartbeats between her and the old man, but they are both forever marked by it. Tension lingers like smoke after fire, subtle, visible only to the observers who were paying attention. The briefcase rests between them now, a silent testament to what almost was lost. The old man adjusts it slightly, motion gentle, deliberate. His coat folds differently, as if reshaped by the care extended toward him. The girl breathes deeply, letting her courage slowly drain into relief. Do we understand bravery differently when it comes from someone small? Is courage measured in size or in willingness? No words are exchanged yet, none are necessary. Their connection deepens not in speech, but in shared understanding of risk, of proximity, of responsibility claimed quietly and without expectation. She does not ask for praise, he does not offer it. Bonding continues silently, stitched together by the raw immediacy of shared danger. The afternoon sun continues climbing, casting light in thin stripes through the stalls. Shadows stretch along the concrete floor, linking the girl and the old man without a word. Around them, life moves on. A vendor laughs somewhere. A rickshaw passes, bouncing its bell. Footsteps echo. But the bench holds its new rhythm, human warmth born of quiet bravery. The girl finally leans back slightly, releasing the grip on the briefcase. Her hands still tremble. The old man sits slowly, cane steadying him, eyes scanning nothing and everything. Market noise returns fully, but here, inside their small corner of survival, time feels suspended. Have you ever felt time bend when someone shields another without asking? Moments stretch, hearts synchronize, and trust forms like a shadow that waits without words. And yet, even as the immediate threat dissolves, unease remains. The child knows instinctively that danger may return, that life rarely rewards bravery with safety. Her eyes dart briefly toward the edges of the market. The old man does not notice. Some dangers are invisible until the next heartbeat. Some risks linger until the next act of courage. But for now, there is calm, shared, fragile, earned. Tension retreats, but vigilance stays.
And the audience feels it too, the quiet aftermath of courage enacted in ordinary spaces, courage small enough to be overlooked, but powerful enough to change someone's life.
Evening descends softly, not sudden, not announced. The market lights flicker to life one by one, orange and pale white bulbs casting long, gentle shadows across wet pavement. The girl sits on the bench, legs pulled close, watching her hands slowly fold over each other. The briefcase rests between them again, but something has shifted, something she does not yet understand. A gust of wind lifts the edge of the leather, nudging it open just enough. Papers slip out, fluttering onto the concrete, edges curling. She looks up, instinctively reaching to stop them. Not money, not jewels, but documents. Rows of typed letters, printed spreadsheets, signatures stamped neatly across the top. Her eyes catch the name repeated on each sheet, the name of the biggest company in the country. The old man bends carefully, gathering the scattered papers. His movements are unhurried, deliberate, almost ceremonial in their calmness. He lets the documents slide into the briefcase, closing it with a soft click. No flourish, no prideful gesture, just quiet, practical containment of a life far heavier than the market bench could ever suggest. The audience, along with the girl, begins to understand. He was not merely tired, not merely old, not merely present in silence. He was carrying worlds within him, responsibilities, expectations, a life of invisible weight that made his coat, his cane, his weary posture seem ordinary. He looks at her then, fully, not with words, not with questions, not with any judgment, just a presence that says, "You were here. You stood by me. You mattered." He gestures slightly toward the bench, inviting her closer without ceremony. She sits, hesitant, aware now of the difference in their lives, aware that she has protected someone who could never have needed protection in ways she imagined, but who, in truth, needed her courage more than anyone else could have. Minutes pass quietly. The market hums on in ordinary rhythm. Somewhere, a vendor calls out fruit prices. Somewhere, a rickshaw engine sputters and dies. Somewhere, a cat darts between crates, undisturbed by human commotion. The girl watches the old man's fingers tap softly on the briefcase, tracing lines she will never read. The warmth she feels is not money, not status. It is connection, the rare kind that does not shout, that does not demand, that simply exists, acknowledged and unbroken. A low murmur grows near the market edge. Security finally arrives, calling him sir in tones of respect that feel surreal against the backdrop of his humble coat and quiet movements. He greets them calmly, adjusting nothing, explaining nothing, merely accepting their presence. The girl observes silently. She does not speak. She does not need to. She has learned everything she needs in this moment, that the world can be vast, intimidating, and unknowable, and still, human warmth can exist quietly beside it. He bends slightly toward her, voice soft enough that she can barely hear it. "Stay here a moment. I'll make a call." She watches as he pulls out his phone, dialing carefully, fingers steady. He arranges for assistance for her schooling, not wealth, not gifts, not spectacle, just practical care, steady and balanced, an offer of stability to a child who had lived without it, without expectation of return. She nods slowly, understanding that healing has come not in miracles, but in the quiet acknowledgement that someone cares. Night falls fully now. The market empties. The bench, once ordinary, now carries memory. The girl leans back slightly, exhaling a breath she did not know she held. The old man sits beside her, cane resting against his leg, briefcase closed, life heavy but contained. Trust has settled here like a warm memory, lingering beyond the hours of noise and danger. She turns slightly, eyes searching the market one last time.
Danger is gone. Relief is tangible. Hope feels possible. The connection remains unspoken, deep, intimate, human, and the audience exhales with them, feeling the soft satisfaction of a story that ends in presence, not triumph. Another story waits quietly. A shadow flits behind a window. A doubt lingers in a millionaire's gaze, and a frightened voice asks permission again. The next tale begins where this one leaves you, promising another glimpse of fragile humanity, courage in the smallest forms, and the quiet power of being chosen.
If you felt the warmth here, can you feel it where you are right now? Did your heart pause for courage you might not have expected? If this story touched you, stay with us. Like, comment, share with a friend. And perhaps click the next story. May I stay? He's following me. Millionaire doubts child until shadow appears. Because life waits quietly in the corners, and you never know when another human connection will change everything. Watch closely. Don't miss it. The next story begins in suspense, with a child arriving somewhere uncertain, creating curiosity immediately. The millionaire doubts the child at first, echoing the theme of mistrust versus bravery. A subtle shadow or small tense movement changes everything, keeping the audience hooked. The narrative is continuous in emotional tone, warm, cinematic, quietly tense, so viewers feel drawn into another intimate story naturally. Encourages watching the next video because of curiosity, suspense, and emotional resonance without breaking immersion.